The Titans scored 30 points in a game, Justin, for the first time in 1,002 days as the Titans take down the Dolphins in Miami, 31-12. I'm acting like this is a normal win and we should be excited, and we're going to talk about what we're actually feeling and break down how this game went. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it.
That 100%. Yeah, Will's healthy. He's our quarterback. It was not a decision based on anything other than his health and protecting him, particularly with the bye week and the shoulder that didn't feel great. I didn't want to put him back out there, and I knew I was going to run the ball quite a bit. So that was really what it factored. But he's our starter when he's healthy, and we're ready to roll with him.
Oh, welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. And Justin, a few things right off the top. Number one, 30-point drought. It's over. Number two, Mason Rudolph. We kind of predicted it. Not in this way, but we kind of predicted it. We'll talk about that. Number three, no silver linings segment on this episode. How's it going, my friend?
Doing well. Nice to be, recording after a victory, first one of the year. So I don't care what, anyone says. It's good to win football games. The National Football League, it's a new staff. First win for Brian Callahan as a professional head coach. He's got to be thrilled. Good, clean performance on the road for the most part. I do want to apologize for the lighting here. A little dark on my end. Full disclosure, I got every light on. It's 11 p.m. out here on the East Coast, so it's just dark, not getting much natural light. Hate these kickoff times on Monday Night Football when you live on the East Coast. But, good clean win and quite a bit to talk about.
Yeah, we said we weren't going to judge you for your background last show because of the construction stuff, but again, it's two in a row. We're going to have to start judging you at some point. No, let's break down this game. We got to start with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph and the Titans offense in general. But before we get there, let's just remind everyone this episode is sponsored by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville, Bluegrass Beverages in Hendersonville. More on Sinkers Beverages when we get to I'll Drink to That. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, we really appreciate that. So make sure you are subscribed to the Music City Audible. Give this video a thumbs up, like, and turn on alerts so you get a notification every time we drop a new video. Okay, Justin, Will Levis lasted how many plays? Let's see. He started the game with a nice, it wasn't the start, but a nice 2nd and 17 throw to DeAndre Hopkins, and then throws an interception right to the defensive end dropping into coverage, Emmanuel Ogbah. Horrible play. The boneheaded Will Levis moment that we've come to expect from every game. This one came way earlier. And if he hadn't done it then, we might not have gotten it at all, because on the next possession, Titans find themselves in 3rd and 3. Levis gets out of trouble. It's actually a pretty nice play to keep the play alive and escape pressure and run for the first down. And I have no problem with him diving for a first down on 3rd and 3. This isn't the type of protect your body, protect yourself, Will stuff that we've been talking about where he throws his shoulder into defensive backs and linebackers. This is just make a play to get the first down. Unfortunately, lands on his throwing shoulder, and it felt like immediately it was like something's not right. He goes into the blue tent. Mason Rudolph comes into the game. And so, Justin, we've been talking about this a lot the last few episodes. Is there going to come a time where Brian Callahan benches Will Levis? Would that be in the best interest of the Titans this season? Maybe long-term, you don't know. You want to get the answer on Will Levis. And if he's not the guy, you want him to play you into a high draft pick. So yada, yada, yada. But we get to see, at least without anyone having to make a decision like Brian Callahan, what the offense looks like with Mason Rudolph. And we're going to talk about what we saw and maybe some of the reasons behind it. But let's just get the Will Levis convo out of the way quickly because he didn't play very long. The interception. I mean, it's another moment that you just say, what are you thinking? And you can tell, you can read his lips on the broadcast. He says, I didn't see him at all. And it's like, how do you not see him at all? That's your job as the quarterback, is to see him.
I think that's the thing that confused me. I mean, he's 6'5", 265, right? And he drops into coverage. And I don't know how he saw DeAndre Hopkins. I think it's who the ball was going to and not Ogbah, because Ogbah looked like the guy he was trying to hit. On the play, right? In all honesty, it was a bad decision, a bad throw. League leading 9th turnover. That's 9 turnovers in 13 quarters, give or take. That's a historically poor pace. And then I like what you said. He gets hurt on the play. I didn't think it was reckless either. I didn't think it was one of those reckless Will Levis plays. I like the decision to dive there for the first down. It shows competitiveness. It's what he should have done. on the play. And, the throw to DeAndre Hopkins earlier, the nice one on 2nd and 17, it's the throws that'll drive you nuts with him, right? Like it was a great decision. It was accurate. It was on time. It was in rhythm. It was on schedule, whatever you want to say. It's the plays you want him to make, right, as your quarterback. And then just, not that many plays later, a different possession, I believe, it was the same possession, right? Not that many plays later, you get the interception, right, which was a boneheaded play. So it is what it is. It continues to be more of the same, I think. And, he hurts himself, and Brian Callahan said he would have put him back in if he was, ready to go. We're not going to sit here and deny that, but you're kind of shrugging your shoulders. I think the same way I am. Kind of sat there with his helmet on the entire game, and you kind of looked like he was itching to get back out there. That's most guys. They're competitors. They want to go out there. Was the diagnosis bad enough to keep him sidelined? Did the Titans take advantage of a good excuse to see what it looks like with the other guy? We probably won't know. But I do think, they've got a decision to make here. And I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Callahan takes most of the bye week to make that decision.
Absolutely. So Will Levis finishes 3 of 4 for 25 yards and the interception. No passes hit the ground. The incompletion was an interception. So that's a positive. All right. So then Mason Rudolph comes in. Let's talk about Rudolph, because he wasn't particularly good. He wasn't like, oh my gosh, where's this guy been? It wasn't like Andy Dalton coming in for the Panthers and all of a sudden the offense is ignited or anything like that. But he goes 9 of 17 for 85 yards, average 5 yards per attempt, only took 1 sack despite dealing with pressure on a number of occasions. But let's talk about what the Titans shifted to. They finished the game with 21 total pass attempts. They finished the game with 40 rush attempts. So it was a pretty clear, this is what we are going to do. We are going to run the ball down your throat. And I thought largely they were pretty successful at doing so, especially given the fact that they started the game with a bunch of negative runs or no gain runs or maybe 1 or 2 yards. And then they just kept chipping away and finally started to clear some lanes. You had Tony Pollard burst through on a big one in the first half that got called back for a phantom holding call. And I do want to talk about the officials in this game, because I'm not blaming the official guy, but we're going to get to this in a second. That was the first big run where you're like, okay, the run game can work. And then it gets called back. They end up with a field goal. And then in the second half, they really start just pounding the rock. I think they came out in the second half, the first drive, and it was like all runs except for one screenplay that Mason Rudolph just had to dirt because it wasn't there. And other than that, it was just run. And Tony Pollard finished the game 22 carries for 88 yards, exactly 4 yards a carry. Tajay Spears, 15 carries for just 39 yards. Both guys got in the end zone. Tajay Spears' touchdown was a beautiful play design on the fake reverse out of the Wildcat, snapped directly to Spears, and the Red Sea just parted for him right up the middle for that one. Tony Pollard's touchdown came on a play that we have to talk about, because I don't understand how the Titans got the ball at the 10-yard line. Yeah. We'll come back to that. But overall philosophy here in this game, it was like, we're going to count on our defense. We're not going to make mistakes. We're not going to put the ball in harm's way. We're going to control the clock, control possession, and just pound it, because we know we're playing against a backup quarterback and we trust our defense on that side of the ball. So a very concerted effort to just pound it and keep control of the football in this game, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point the game was 0-0, and the Titans had like a 4-2 from like midfield.
It was after the Levis play. Yeah. It should have been a first down. He got the first down.
Bad call.
He got the first down.
I don't want to get too much into the officiating, but it was horrid all evening. It was terrible. But 4th and 1, and they decide to punt. Remember earlier, they went for a 4th down when they had Will Levis in the game. They ran the QB sneak, almost a version of the tush push, if you will, or whatever. Like Chig kind of motions right behind Levis and kind of helps push him for the first. But I was a little surprised they decided to punt in that situation. But then again, I think they knew or had an idea how pathetic that Miami offense was and decided to play the field position game. And although Ryan Stonehouse does have to learn, how to keep that punt out of the end zone. I think that's a consistent problem with him. He just boots every single one. And, net yards was like 30 net yards on that punt, give or take, because you get the touchback. So not a whole lot there. In most situations, you'd like to go for it. But I understand the decision based on the situation, the quarterback you're playing against, and how well it was early, but how well your defense was already playing. And certainly you don't regret that decision, I don't think.
And Miami had 3 plays for -4 yards on the ensuing possession.
It certainly worked. Certainly worked out. On to Mason Rudolph, I think. it was unspectacular, I would say, for the most part. But, you talked about the ground and pound attack. It's funny. It almost reminds me of the Bears game, right? Like, let's be honest. They did enough to win the game. They didn't lose the game, right? And it's sad that the bar for quarterback play is so low right now here that's an improvement from what they've gotten from Will Levis for most of the season, right? Like, maybe they lose this game if they put the ball in harm's way or make a boneheaded decision and swing momentum. They just took care of the ball. I don't know that Mason Rudolph, it's weird. I don't know that he made one bad decision the entire night, right? Like, it was unspectacular, but he didn't make any bad decisions. I thought two of his best throws were almost the first two he made. There was the one to Josh Wiley. It was like a 3rd and 4, I believe, where he takes a shot, but he kind of stands in the pocket. That's what he does. I've said it all the whole time, right? That we've talked about him since he got here. He just takes what the defense gives him and makes good decisions, right? Like, he hits Wiley, he takes that shot. Then it was like the next play, he gets Treylon Burks to make his first catch of the season. Yeah. I think the throw wasn't perfect, but it was good enough for a nice gain to Burks. And then I said two of his best throws, because the best one came at the end of the half there. When I like the decision by Brian Callahan, by the way, to force the Dolphins to punt in that situation with like 20-something seconds left, and you end up getting a shanked punt. You just never know. You got decent field position, and then he hits a beautiful, beautiful throw to Tyler Boyd up the middle of the field with no timeouts left. That play, they snapped it with 16 seconds. He hits a beautiful throw to Tyler Boyd. He throws it with anticipation. It's a beautiful window throw, and you get down there and you execute the spike with 1 second on the clock, and you steal 3 points.
I want to talk about that for a sec, because that's just an example in a very small play there, but big moment of what having a guy like Mason Rudolph can do for you, because that is pure experience and composure in the moment. And I say all that because they run the situational stuff in practice. They practice these situations like, we don't have any timeouts. We want to get it into field goal range, blah, blah, blah. Here's the procedure of how we're going to run down there and get this spike and blah, blah, blah. But I would be willing to bet that Mason Rudolph has not run that situation since training camp, at least. If he was even doing it then, this is the starting quarterback runs these situational practice moments. It's not, you don't have your second stringer doing this. There's not enough reps to go around. There's not enough time in the day to do this with multiple teams. First team does it and second team. So the fact that Rudolph was able to execute that as well as he did and get that spike with 1 second and allow Nick Folk to come in there and bang in his second 50-plus yard field goal, his third field goal of the game, is really impressive. Just the fact that Mason Rudolph was able to execute that shows the preparedness and the composure and, like I said, an experience in these moments, because a rookie coming in ain't going to do that. He had no practice reps on that, I'm willing to bet. He had no practice reps on that, and he executed it perfectly.
Yeah, it was very impressive. It was very, very impressive. And, the Titans, and by the way, 1 sack given up the whole evening. I mean, when was the last time they did that? They had 8 they gave up last weekend. And on top of it, I almost wish they passed it more, because I would love to know how much of that was obviously a run-heavy game plan. How much of that is the offensive line just playing better against a defense that hasn't had a lot of sacks this year? This was not a great Dolphins pass rush.
Right.
And also how much of it, what the real answer I want is how much of it is Mason Rudolph, not sliding into pressure and some of the stuff Will Levis has done this year where some of those sacks have been on him. So I don't think we have a clear answer to that question, unfortunately. Yeah. But my brain is turning a little bit. I do wonder how much of that is Mason Rudolph's, pocket presence probably being better than Will Levis's. I want to get this conversation out of the way, because we know the Titans have a decision to make here. And maybe my answer is going to be a little bit melodramatic, if you will, or anticlimactic. I think, is the word I'm looking for.
Melodramatic.
I think I could live with either decision they make, and I don't feel strongly one way or the other, because I'm not going to sit here and advocate for the benching of Will Levis. I understand the argument that says he's a young quarterback and you want to use all 17 games to evaluate him, and Mason Rudolph is not a franchise quarterback, and you're still maybe playing for the future at this point at 1-3, and you need a clear-cut answer on Will Levis, and you should use the entire season as your sample size. That's probably the way I'd lean, maybe it's a 55-45 I'm feeling right now. But, if Brian Callahan wants to go the other way, I could understand it. This is probably the best the offense has looked. Again, I mean, 30 points for the first time in 1,002 days.
Yeah, but that was a Fugazi, a 30-point performance.
It is, but it's more than 16 and 14, which is what they've scored in the other games, right?
17 twice. Come on, Justin. They lost 24-17 in two different games.
Yeah, sorry, 17. Yeah, 17 points and 14, right? I think against the Packers. It is probably the best the offense has looked. Again, really low bar, and it still didn't look good. It didn't. But again, like, these guys are in the business of winning football games, right? Like, and they went out there today and they won a football game, and Mason Rudolph didn't lose it for them, and he leaned on a run game in defense, and I could understand. I could come to the conclusion, if Brian Callahan gets to the same conclusion, saying, hey, we think we can win some football games with him as our quarterback because he's not going to put us in bad situations, and we're going to lean on our defense. And, the O-line looks pretty good tonight, right? Dylan Radins a couple times as a pulling guard. I thought J.C. Latham was outstanding once again. I didn't notice NPF for the most part. That's the best thing I could say. He did lose a couple reps early, but they gave him some trip help with the running back. And there was one play, it was hilarious. Yeah, they had 3 guys on Jalen Phillips.
Yeah,
I think it was the completion to Wiley that I brought up earlier. They had 3 guys on Jalen Phillips on NPF's right side. But again, I'm probably 55-45. You go back to Levis in 2 weeks. I don't think this injury is going to be serious enough to keep him out. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm stunned if Brian Callahan goes the other way.
I think, first of all, I want to disagree. I don't think this is the best the offense has looked. I think the offense looked about as good as it has in weeks 1 and 2. Now, week 3, it did not look good at all. But they moved the ball in those first 2 games. It was the Levis disaster class that resulted in the points being shaved down. They moved the ball pretty well, especially early in those games. In this game, they didn't move the ball that well early. It was more second half stuff that got them. I mean, they got into field goal range in the first half, but they actually put drives together in the second half. I do think, like, the most complete game they played, and the reason for that is because they didn't have the disaster turnovers after the first drive. And you can say, well, that's looking better, and yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, like, overall drive to drive consistency, it's not like they were that bad. It's not like they were going 3 and out every time in the first 3 games. Like, they were moving the ball a good bit. They outgained their opponents in each of the first 2 games. Like, the offense has been fine. It's just the big disaster turnovers. And so I get what you're saying, but my opinion on who they should go with at quarterback hasn't really changed since our preview episode. Like, I know we were very reactionary on last week's recap, calling for Levis to potentially be benched, but my head's still where it was last week. Like, number 1, Mason Rudolph did not do anything special in this game that Will Levis can't do, unless you think Will Levis just cannot protect the ball, in which case I kind of have to, I mean, I can't disagree with that at this point. But aside from protecting the ball better, like, maybe he was checking into some of these run looks that gave them an advantage, or maybe they just had the calls and the blocking executed well. Like, we got to go back and look at the tape to know that. So maybe you can say his experience there allowed the run game to function a little bit better. But I mean, 40 rush attempts to 21 total team pass attempts. It's not like they were relying on Rudolph. So all that to say is, like, my question was, will the offense look like Carolina going from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton if you go from Levis to Rudolph? Was kind of answered in the sense that, no, it didn't look that much better. There's still some disasters across the offensive line. There's still the miscues there, but they were able to at least overcome those disasters in the second half and really put some drives together. So I think for that reason, and for what you're talking about, which is, like, he's a young second-year quarterback, you got to know if he's your guy going into next year. If he's healthy in week 6, I think you go back to Levis. And if you get 2 more weeks in a row of absolute disaster plays, then maybe it's like, okay, we've seen this 5 times in 6 weeks in 5 games. Then it's like, okay, we can calm down. There's 6 times in 7 games, whatever it works out. If he keeps playing as poorly and the mistakes don't start to disappear, then around mid-season, maybe you make the switch. But I do think from Brian Callahan's standpoint, like, as much as us fans are already like, well, we're 1-3, we're going to be terrible, like, why not just tank for the top pick? Coaching staffs don't think that way. Like, you have a finite amount of time to show leadership of a team that you can be the head coach, and Rand Carthon, you can be the GM, and you can build a competitive football team. They're not going to let the first season just go to waste because they want a high draft pick. Like, they're going to try to win as many games as they can. So that's why I would think around mid-season, if it hasn't clicked for him, then you might see Rudolph. But I do think if he's healthy week 6, Levis is probably the starter.
Yeah, I'm not going to push back on that whatsoever because I get that line of thinking, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But I will say, because you acknowledged it, but I will say, like, part of the offense looking good is avoiding turnovers. It's one of the most important things that decides wins and losses in the National Football League, and he's committed a league high 9.
Yes,
right in 13 quarters. So that's part of the offense looking good, right? It's winning the turnover, and they won the turnover battle tonight, right? And
first time this season. But I guess my point is, like, the drives that ended in turnovers outside of the one play turnover drives were at least good looking drives until the turnover happened. So anyway, let's talk quickly about the officiating. I just want to rattle off the things that frustrated me. Again, I don't really care that much, but it was just frustrating. First thing, DeAndre Hopkins had a first down on a catch that they spotted 1 yard behind the marker. Yeah. Who knows why? That was a bizarre one. Will Levis had a first down on that run. They spotted him behind the marker. Callahan could have challenged that one, didn't. The fumble, there was a lateral to Tyreek Hill when the play they lined up in the backfield that Arden Key scooped up. They blew it dead. And I don't know if there was really a whistle. There was some debate about it. I couldn't hear a whistle. I don't know if there was a whistle. I saw officials running in to where the play happened, waving their arms in the air like, stop the clock, it's an incomplete pass, or waving them this way, incomplete pass. So they may not have blown it dead, but they definitely waved it off. That should have been an Arden Key touchdown. Arden Key, run to the end zone, buddy. You never know, run to the end zone. Roughing the passer on Snoop Huntley was absolutely not roughing the passer. Like, he was still throwing the ball, and he didn't with his body weight. He didn't turn him back, or he didn't throw him hard to the ground.
Was it way worse than the call that Levis got earlier?
Also bullshit. That should not have been roughing the passer.
Exactly.
Levis either.
That's just the way they call it nowadays. I think is my counterpoint.
Both of those were very weak calls. L'Jarius Sneed gets a taunting penalty for casually knocking the ball out of the receiver's hands. That happens every week in every game, and it's never called a penalty.
Quickly on Sneed, caught a couple breaks tonight. If that's Tua at quarterback, yes, Hill had him beat on several would-be
but
explosive plays.
Is that the same coverage Titans will be running if Tua's at quarterback and you actually are threatened by Hill beating you deep? Do you have a safety over the top if that's the case? Tyler Huntley's probably not going to beat you like that, and if he does, you shake his hand and say good throw.
Fair.
So that's a question. But on Sneed could have had an interception, but really Amani Hooker should have had an interception and would have had an interception if Tyreek Hill didn't jump on his back in midair. That's offensive pass interference. No way around it. The holding call on Lloyd Cushenberry, we already talked about. Absolutely no holding there. That was another bullshit. So Titans got a ton of bullshit thrown at them. However, they did get a very fortunate circumstance happening at the end of the game. Can we talk about Colt Anderson and how I hate him? Sorry, that was a little strong. About how he's struggling as the special teams coordinator because he allows another big return, and maybe that one's on Stonehouse because he booted it 80 yards in the air, and that's a little too far for your coverage unit to get down the field. But that's also on your coordinator to say, don't boot it 80 yards with no hang time because we're going to give up a return. So they give up another big return to Braxton Berrios. It's the only explosive play the Dolphins had in this game on either side of the ball or on offense or anything was that Braxton Berrios return sets up a field goal. So another gaffe there on special teams. And then what in the world happened on that onside safety kickoff? Because the Titans are very fortunate that the ball didn't land in the landing zone or whatever the hell the landing zone is on an onside kick off a safety punt. Is it different than the landing zone on a kickoff? Here's what I know. Of the 22 people on that field for that play, nobody out there knew that they were safe because it didn't land in the landing zone. They thought this is a punt. We don't have to field it. If there was no landing zone rule, if this was last year's kickoff rules, that's Dolphins ball. And Colt Anderson ripping his headset off and throwing it on the ground. No. You can't fool me, bro. This is your fault. Don't say, oh, I told the players they should have caught the ball. No. That's your fault. You're the coordinator. They need to know. You need to tell them right before the play if they don't know. Catch the damn ball. So, huge gaffe. Colt Anderson, and our buddy, for not being a good coordinator.
I mean, you didn't even mention the worst part. They nearly had a third punt blocked in 4 games. Well, I almost count that as a block. Yeah, it was tipped. That's 3 blocked punts in 4 games is absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah. I wrote an article about it on Titansized. I'm convinced, I hate to say it, but I'm convinced they did not fill that spot with much conviction. I just don't think neither head coach or GM had a very deep Rolodex to kind of go through when it came to filling that spot on the coaching staff. And it's not looking good.
Yeah. And so then after that safety punt, fielded, not fielded, whatever the hell happened, it was deemed an illegal kick which for some reason put the ball at the 10-yard line for the Titans. The 10-yard line? What is the penalty? How much yardage is that penalty worth? And where is the spot from? I have no idea how that works. And I need to learn it before I get on and record Heed the Call here in a few minutes, because I'm going to have to explain this to some people. And I sit here right now recording with you, Justin. I have no idea why the ball went to the 10-yard line in that situation. But it resulted in the Titans breaking the 30-point streak. So I call it a Fugazi 30-point game, because they would not have gotten to 30 without this weird-ass play. And Tony Pollard gets his touchdown. I referenced that in the beginning, off of this weird sequence of events that puts the ball at the 10-yard line. Titans go for it on 4th and goal from the 6-yard line with under 2 minutes to play. They could have just kicked a field goal, or even, I think it was like 40 seconds or maybe less. Could have kicked a field goal, could have just taken the knee and said, here you go, Dolphins, you're down 10 points. There's no way you're going to overcome, or 12 points. There's no way you're going to overcome this, even if we just give you the ball back. But they go for the kill shot. You get Tony Pollard a touchdown, which capped off his big night, and you break the 30-point drought all at once. So, Justin, I think that's a perfect segue into I'll drink to that. Cheers. Sorry, Dad, I still don't have a real drink in my hand. Cheers. And what I'm drinking to is 30-point drought is over. I mean, it's a pretty simple one. I am drinking to that all day, all night. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, first win of the season. If you should be happy about it, you should be excited. It's too early to start the tank talk. And on top of it, it's not like you're tanking for Arch Manning or a generational quarterback prospect. I'm really not that excited about this quarterback class at all. And yes, you can make the argument maybe they'll fall in love with one of them, or you could trade the pick back, or you could take someone else like Travis Hunter. But I'm not there yet. I mean, if this was a generational quarterback, I might already be there, but there isn't, so I'm not there yet. I'm thrilled with the victory. 1-3, go into the bye. They're going to love this. You go into that feeling good. It's a much-needed refresher. First career win, again, for a lot of these coaches who are in first-time roles, OC, DC, special teams coordinator, head coach, play caller. And you'll feel good coming out of it with a matchup against the Colts. You beat the Colts in week 6. You're second place in the AFC South, most likely. I guess it depends what the Colts do next week, but you got a good chance to be second place in the AFC South the next time you take the field. You just kind of sign up for that and say, hey, we still control our own destiny. It's early in the season. Let's play our best ball in November, December, and onward.
2.5% chance to make the playoffs based on history is still alive, baby. I'll drink to that. And I'll drink to the Jags being 0-4 and in a complete disaster nuclear meltdown mode right now, where we don't know if Doug Peterson's job is safe. Trevor Lawrence got the $275 million contract, and he is the worst player on their team right now. Maybe that's a stretch, but he's missing open receivers downfield left and right, and basically getting called out by his head coach in post-game press conferences, not directly, but saying it's on the players to execute. We got Christian running wide open. We got Gabe Davis running wide open. We got BT running wide open. Yikes. At least we're not Jags fans, Justin.
Yeah. It could be worse. It could be worse, Titans fan. Living proof right there. You don't got to look far forward. It's probably the team you hate the most.
I'll drink to that. Presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville, serving the community since 1985. Their knowledgeable staff is proud to help you with large parties, themed events, or finding something unique for a special occasion. From birthday parties to milestone celebrations to everyday moments, Sinkers can help with the right drink for every occasion. If you head to sinkersbeverages.com or check the link in this podcast description, you can join the In-Crowd. In-Crowd members get access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. All right, Justin, any final thoughts on this game? I got to go record Heed the Call. I got to do a little bit of prep. So what, if anything you got left, get it out and we'll end this thing.
Not a whole lot. Great on Denard Wilson, good defensive game plan. I know you take advantage of the quarterback over there, but you're without Jeffrey Simmons, you're without Cheeto Awuzie. I thought Tavondre Sweat made a ton of impact plays in the backfield. I'd still like to see more from him as a pass rusher. Harold Landry, 4th sack of the season in 4 games, on pace for a career high. Again, not a whole lot to do, but Jarvis Brownlee Jr., first career start. I think he'll chalk that up as a W. Outstanding by him. Couple D linemen made some plays. James Lynch, I thought looked good. Sebastian Joseph Day with, I believe, his 2nd sack of the season already. Amani Hooker played great football. Quandre Diggs, outstanding. Dolphins still have a lot of weapons. I thought they tried to get the ball to Tyreek Hill in a couple plus situations near the line of scrimmage, and for the most part, they did a phenomenal job keeping contained. And the few times he did get outside, for the most part, they rallied to the football, stopped him on fourth and short when they got the ball into his hands. Just a really, really good, stout defensive performance. And, these guys are real people with real feelings. They'll feel outstanding about that after the stinker they had against Green Bay. So tip of the caps to Denard Wilson, the entire defense, really good performance.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that because we didn't talk about the defense at all. And it's important to acknowledge that even though they're playing against Pro Bowl quarterback Snoop Huntley, Tyler Huntley, Snoop Dogg does the Monday Night Football commercial intro now this season, I guess. Snoop Huntley did not play like a Pro Bowler tonight. He was really bad. I said it in the group chat. He makes Will Levis almost look competent at times. He was terrible dealing with pressure. He took a couple of sacks that there was some good rushes by the Titans, but two of the sacks he took I thought were like, how are you still holding on the ball and trying to evade this pressure? Like, you're not going to get away from these guys, NFL athletes. But like you said, the Dolphins do have a lot of weapons. Devon Achane came into this game, I think, leading the league in forced missed tackles. And obviously Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle are great receivers and very fast receivers. And I guess if the Dolphins had a quarterback that could get them the ball, maybe things are different. But in this one, they did not. And again, like, yes, you're playing against Snoop Huntley, but you're still playing against an NFL roster with one of the smartest offensive head coaches in the league, even though the team hasn't looked great so far this year. And you're coming off a game where Malik Willis pretty much torched you. I mean, for Malik Willis standards, he torched you. So yes, nice to see all of that. And good game, good solid game for the Titans. Plenty of little mistakes to go fix, but now you got a bye week to get right. We are still going to do 2 shows next week. Let's move into our outro, Justin.
Yeah. There's a chance we could have a pretty cool guest on. I don't know if it'll be this week or another week or whatever, but I think I've got a pretty cool guest coming on soon. So we'll see when that happens. But I am going to touch base at some point this week and see if they want to do it now or if they want to do it down the line. But stay tuned for that.
Nice. So that'll be exciting. Yeah. So we'll see you guys next week with more podcasts covering the Titans. Hopefully you're interested in the Titans still over the bye week in the midst of a 1-3 season. But hey, we're all Titans fans, so hopefully you'll be interested. All right, that'll do it. We'll see y'all next time. Until then, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.